hello from me, Lazarus IDE. Welcome to the next lesson in the course on Introduction to Lazarus IDE. We are currently working on my second book, Introduction to Lazarus IDE. But just before I open it, I'll say that I've already updated my site. And right now I'm showing here that I'm also working on the next part of my book, in which we'll look at more components in Lazarus IDE that we haven't yet, and we'll develop a more complex program for sales in store, which is called My Store. So, expect interesting things. When it's ready, you will, of course, be notified and you will be able to purchase it. So, we said we're currently working on my second book. These are the free chapters of it, and we've come to a parameter, or object, sender in Lazarus IDE. And last time we understood what sender is and how it is used. And now we will show how exactly to check the use of sender in practices. The first option is with the prefixes, using it like this: if sender is TButton, then. Just to say, this lesson will also be theoretical, and in the next we will look at two examples. So, we're processing, for example, a click here on different buttons, and we want to understand which button was pressed. In that case, we can do the following. Here's the procedure itself, how it's written. If sender is, I translate it into pseudocode or human language. If sender is button, then show a message, the following button was pressed. This will now display which button was pressed. Yes, I have explained here what each line does. Checks if sender is a button, converts sender to a button type so we can access its properties. And with caption we display the caption of the pressed button. The second type, when working with it, the conversion is with AS. Sender is button. This is used when we are sure that sender is of a particular type. We can directly convert it to that type with AS, without doing any additional checks with if. Here's a simple example of using this way. Here's the procedure. We convert and write directly. But if sender is not of the expected type, then AS will cause a runtime error. Exception. When to use sender as. So, when several components use a common event procedure, when you need to find out which component has triggered the event, when we need to avoid duplication of code, and shortening the code too, when we use as at the beginning. Here are two more examples. That we're going to show. In other words, without doing them in the program, we're just going to show them just here. The first one will contain the first three options. Here, in this example, the button click event handler is the same for all buttons. Instead of doing a different procedure for each button press, we use sender to check the button's caption and see which button was pressed. This way we save code and make the program more cleanly written, while still handling all buttons in one procedure. So, the second example is a truncation of the code with AS at the beginning. There it is. We write it like this. Here our variable is of type button, and to btn we assign sender_button. And here's how the code looks like this, and otherwise, if we don't do it like this, it means in every row instead of btn. We have to write sender_button. We have to write it every time. So here we just shorten, we remove this writing on every line. So, in this example, we're working with the object multiple times, so we use as at the beginning and assign the converted object to the variable. This is, as we said, a cleaner and efficient way. And the last thing we'll look at in this tutorial is using sender directly without conversion. So here we should be 100% sure that sender is of a specific type and we can work with it directly, without converting it. This is also the simplest example. Without anything, we just write it like this in the procedure. We print a message. The button that was pressed is this one. In this case we know that sender will always be a button, because the handler is only connected to button. Therefore we use button sender caption directly, without any additional handling. That's all for this lesson. Best regards.